Hey, everybody, this is Glenn Garnes with Village Connector Community, and we're bringing you another random insight. Today, I'm joined by Josh Silverstone of Aces Raise, and Josh is going to share with us some insights into how poker can be used to build your decision-making skills. So, Josh, thanks for joining us for this random insight.
Always. Thank you for having me.
Now, I have to say, Josh, when I think of poker, I think of gambling. I don't think of, I know there's decision making in it, but I don't think that's not like the immediate thing I see. So some people, when they think of poker, they're like me, they think of gambling. So tell us what we can do to address the perception of how poker is a game of skill rather than just an entertainment activity.
Absolutely. Well, I think there's a certain perception that exists. One, there's a religious aspect, and in the churches and religious organizations, there's a certain stigma and a perception. And also, if you think about kind of the origins of where poker came from, at one point in time, it was kind of played in smoky back rooms, and there's a certain image in your head that you can probably already draw up when I say that. Though over time, over the a number of years, the game has really evolved. So it went from these back rooms to being the World Series of Poker that got played in Las Vegas for years, and then the rise of being televised and seeing the whole cards, and you can see what people's thought processes were and how they were making decisions. Then the rise of online poker and a whole new kind of skill set. And the online poker aspect of it really kind of, I think, boomed there's a lot more going on here than we thought because of a few things. One, in online poker, you get a lot more hands dealt per minute because you don't have to shuffle the cards. You don't have to pitch them out. It's basically automated by the system. So you're seeing a lot more hands and a lot more volume. So from there, it was, okay, well, how do I maximize my return kind of became the question. So you look at it that way and you say, okay, well, what are my opponents doing? What can I do? How can I put myself in better position to win? And there's a lot of math, a lot of psychology, and won't go into every little piece of it right now, but hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about it as we continue the conversation.
So it's, the way you just described that to me, it sounded like business. It sounded like careers, because you talked about, maximizing your return, which we do both in business and in our careers. People want to be well compensated for their talents and skills. That's maximizing your return. That's the same thing that you're talking about when you talk about the game of poker. So you also mentioned, what are your competitors doing? That's business. Mm-hmm. That's the people that you're competing with for a job or whatever. So the reason I mention it that way is because I think that you've described this as a game of skill, and it's not just gambling. In fact, the whole point is that when you have developed to the point where you can be consistently a winner, whether you're doing it for money or just doing it for pleasure, it's because you have developed the ability to understand how the game works, which sounds like business and life generally, mm-hmm. and also how to maximize your enjoyment of the game, in this case, the game of life, as we were talking about. So it's amazing how when you look beyond just the general activity, what can be learned from the things around you. And in this case, as you've described, the game of poker. I have a pet project that I'm working on called Lessons in the Lyrics, where it's a similar kind of approach to what you just described, where sometimes we listen casually to a song and we catch the catchy tune and we enjoy the song, but we're not really listening to the message in it. And when you really get the lyrics, all of a sudden it has a whole new meaning to you. I'm getting the impression that the game of poker for you is very much that way. It's not just I'm going to go do this and have some fun with it. You've actually learned to appreciate what it takes to stimulate the intellectual side of the activity. Is that pretty much what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's always it comes down to strategy. It's how, if I do this, then what will happen, and that comes from me. I played chess as a kid growing up, so always that. All right, if I do this, what are they going to do? What am I going to need to do a few steps down the road? So I took that with me through. I know you're an athlete yourself. I played football. I wrestled. played volleyball, and I wasn't always the strongest, I wasn't always the fastest, but I always used that, okay, well, what can I do to get my competitive advantage? So if it was playing offensive lineman, for example, I would see, okay, who's lined up against me? What's their first move likely going to be? And everyone has little tendencies and things that they do and you can say, okay, based on that, if I do this, I can beat him to this spot, or I'll let him get to this spot, and then I'll just continue pushing him that way because his momentum's going to be there, even though he's a bigger guy. So, whether that's chess, whether that's poker, whether that's business, you can take that and say, okay, well, I'm going to use this to my advantage by thinking a few steps ahead and just taking a step back and saying, okay, well, what can I do to put myself in the best position to win? And ultimately, the best players in the world do win more frequently because they are thinking a few more steps ahead than their competitors or their competition.
And I appreciate you're using these analogies that people can relate to, because I think that the message in what you've shared with us today is that when you're in your daily routine, your daily life, doing this, doing that, whatever it might be more mindful of the activities that you are engaged in and look deeper into them, into where the lessons are in there. Because as you pointed out, poker is more about strategy and decision making than it is about just the enjoyment of a game. In every game that we play, regardless of what that game may be, there's strategy, there's something to be learned, there's something to be observed, and those things that you learn and observe could be relevant in other aspects of your life. And that's one of the reasons I really love what you're doing with the game of poker. You're taking something people enjoy and showing them how to get even more out of it. Now, we're going to be continuing our dialogue. We're going to break this up because there's so much this gets really deep. And that's one of the things I think that you add to the equation here, is that you've been able to take something that appears on the face to be a relatively simple thing, the game of poker, and you've shown people how to really take control of their lives by understanding the lessons that come out of the game of poker, not just learning how to play that game, but how the skills that come out of it apply in life and everything else that we do. So I want to thank you for sharing on this Random Insight some of the, I'll call it the myths, or some of the, the fallacies about the game of poker, and helping people understand where I'll say the goodness is and where the opportunity is in it. So thank you for joining us on this Random Insight.
Thank you.